How we doing, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Wolf, and welcome to the first League starter for Echoes of the Atlas. This is where things are going to get very, very interesting, because they're basically doing a boss rush mode for the new league. So I figured, what works the best in boss rush? Well, there's two main styles of doing things. You can either one-shot all of the bosses, or you can outlast them and create a setup that's pretty much unkillable or very difficult to kill, and then slowly whittle them down over time. This setup does option number 2, but can be very, very heavily tweaked to get to option number 1. This is an SSF-friendly character that is extremely, extremely cheap and easy to pull off. I have played it myself in, I believe I played it in as either a hardcore run or just a solo self-found run. The only issue I had with this character is it kind of bored me. That's why I didn't finish it and why I didn't get gameplay for it, but I did play it up to Blood Aqueducts, and it absolutely just shit-stomped everything. So, I'm going to cover the build for you. This is my Herald of Agony Juggernaut, and I will showcase to you all of the sort of tweaks and what have you can do for playing this yourself. Now, if you're taking a look at the stats and you're wondering about, like, oh, you know, it looks terribly unoptimized, it's because I make builds like this. The reason I do them like this is so that when you play them, or when I play them, I can just slot pieces in as I come across it, and the default rendition of the character I have will work with very little work put into it. You can adjust however you need. You can add, you know, whatever uniques you come across, whatever stuff you find. If there's anything you want to buy, if you're playing in Trade League, you can just buy it, slot it in, and you'll do even better. Because there are, of course, a lot of players who have more knowledge than I do when it comes to these sorts of things. I would recommend looking at build guides, and any build guide you look at, rather than, you know, just a specific build template, right? You know, to do all the things that are laid out for you. I don't really find that enjoyable myself. Some people do. Like, yeah, more power to you. But the way I'd recommend looking at them is just sort of like getting an idea going, because for me at least, Path of Exile is a lot more fun when you build your own build and style, but I know some people like to just take whatever's powerful and effective and roll with it. But yeah, I'd recommend taking all these sorts of videos as, oh, that looks like an interesting thing, how can I twist this my own way? Because of course you're not going to be playing the high-end character you're watching the streamer play, you're going to be playing your own rendition of it. So, as a result, I've made this as basic as possible and as simple as possible. This build will destroy pretty much everything and generally be very hard to kill. I have heard from other people who have played it in previous leagues that the build has done exceptionally well, had zero issue whatsoever, cleared high-level delves, high-level maps, no problem at all. Only thing is it does get a little bit monotonous, but what PoE build doesn't? Alright, so what does this character make use of? Essentially, you are utilizing Herald of Agony, which is going to spawn you a little minion follower that is pretty much immortal. It doesn't really take damage from anything ever, for whatever reason, I don't particularly know. And this thing does a sort of like tail swipe sort of attack that'll shoot a bunch of projectiles out that pierce through things, do bonus damage, that sort of stuff. And that is going to scale up based on poison stacks that you inflict onto a target. So what you're going to want to wind up doing is inflict poison some way, somehow. So what we're doing for that is utilizing Cyclone, because we're going to be spinning in the middle of everything pretty much 24/7, permanently poisoning with 60% chance to poison here and 40% chance to poison here, which makes 100% poison chance, which means we're going to be getting stacks of Herald of Agony all the time, which will keep our dude bro up and keep him doing bonus damage, because each poison we inflict, we get a virulence stack. And as you can see, he gets added damage and increased damage per virulence we have. Now, you can play this character as pretty much any sort of class and spec you want, really. Pathfinder is not bad for this either, but you won't be half as tanky. That's where the sort of like trade-off comes in. You want more damage, you can play it as Ranger Pathfinder, but that will require tweaking of the skill tree and however you want to go about doing that. But yeah. So the ways to go about scaling up your Herald of Agony is through minion damage gear. You'll see I have a Vol Axe that just has like minion damage increased. When I played this character, I used two unique, what was it? scepters, I think they were, that I had drop for me while I was leveling, and they gave me minion damage percent. There are so many ways to craft now, and with harvest coming back and all that sort of stuff, there's so many ways you can get stupid minion damage bonuses that you can push this thing's DPS through the roof, I'll be honest with you. You can get double minion scepters with like bonus added damage and everything. You can get influence stuff with minion damage on it. You can get like constant curses, all that sort of stuff. And you can get so much extra damage amp that I don't even know where to really start if I was to tweak this whole thing out. Just sort of play with it as you go, mess around with it, and just look for sources of minion damage and see what you can come up with and what you can add and what's actually accessible to you. One thing I would recommend doing is getting minion scepters, and those are doable via Delve. Using Delve fossils to craft minion damage scepters would be my recommendation. Use 2 of those and you'll be good to go. One thing to think about though is because you have a faster attack speed, you'll be hitting faster with Cyclone, and our Cyclone utilizes blood magic to keep going. So the faster attack speed you have, the more it, ticks your Cyclone, because it's going through its animation quicker, which means you're ticking down your health that little bit faster. Although it's very small amounts of health, but you know what I mean. It's the small things, right? So, just to cover everything for you in a simple rendition here. The skill tree, we are going to get as much life as possible, grab as much life as we can, grab resolute techniques so you can level quite easily, and so you don't miss when you're trying to poison things. Then we've got life here, endurance charge, life here, life, jewel socket, you can put whatever you want in here, minion damage stuff, minion damage abyssals, that sort of stuff. Life over here, endurance charge, life, then we get life, and we get minion damage right here. If we come up here, we get this cluster for a bunch of minion damage, and this will also make the minion damage apply to you, if I remember correctly. It's extra damage on Cyclone, I guess, kind of useful early on, but it's kind of meh. Just flat damage for the Herald of Agony stuff, and then we get reduced reserves, so we can stack up more stuff for Herald of Agony, and then we come down over here, and we get life, as well as attack speed and movement penalties, so we can go a little bit quicker with dexterity. Then we get life and another jewel socket and endurance charges. We come over here and we get Champion of the Cause for reduced mana reserve to sort ourselves out so we can consume all of our mana, and then we can still Cyclone with blood magic to not have an issue whatsoever. So Herald of Agony here is going to go in our, This is going to go in our chest piece. This Cyclone setup is more than likely going to go in a 2-handed weapon. You can drop Fortify and just use Cyclone, Lesser, Poison, Lesser, and then Blood Magic in like a 4-link sort of thing, like gloves, helmet, that sort of stuff. Depends how you want to play that, and then you put Fortify on a Blood Magic Leap Slam, something like that, to keep up your Fortify constantly, or you get the Fortify on hit gloves, or there's a bunch of Fortify on hit sort of extra stuff you can get if you're really looking for that sort of stuff. Then we get Hatred, Generosity. This is going to give us damage as extra cold, and you and nearby allies deal more cold damage. And then Generosity is going to make it so it doesn't affect us, but it gives increased bonuses, so it gives a shit ton more damage, and then it gives it to our minion. So he gets a nice damage bonus from this. And then we are running a Sniper's Mark with cast when damage taken. So while we're in the fray, we're going to be getting hit by a lot of small melee attacks, which is why I'm going to be wearing, mostly armor gear here wherever we can to mitigate those small attacks. But they're going to be picking off rather rapidly for very small amounts of damage, which will set off our cast when damage taken. Now, this is going to create an AoE around us that will put out a Sniper's Mark, which will curse an enemy, increasing the damage they take from projectiles and making projectiles split when hitting them to other targets around them. Now, this is going to be primarily for bosses. There's other curses you can use if you want, like AoE stuff as well. This is the single target setup for Sniper's Mark. But there are, I don't remember what the other one is. I think it's projectile weakness that you can use for this same sort of thing for AoE, so adapt for whatever you are looking to do. Obviously, we're talking boss rush here, so Sniper's Mark is going to be your option for that. Projectile weakness for AoE farming. and it'll just constantly pulse out your curses and marks and what have you. So Vol Haste, we're going to be enabling only Vol Haste and not the normal one. This is just going to give us a nice boost to attack speed for us and our minion. Just press it whenever you come into a boss fight or what have you, right? Flesh Offering, this is going to be consume a corpse and it'll empower your nearby minions. You can pop this when you get to a boss as well. You can also run a Desecrate if you need to create corpses in a boss fight. That'll work for you as well. Casting damage taken Stone Golem, this is just passive life regeneration. Simple enough, right? Enduring Cry, this is going to give you a nice bit of life as well as endurance charges. We went for endurance charge increases over here, right? So this is going to make us even tankier and give us more life regen as well. And then a Blood Magic Steel Skin because we don't have the mana to cast it otherwise. And this is going to give us a nice life shield. So tanky on tanky on tanky, you get the sort of memo. This character is extremely simple and rather effective. Pretty foolproof as well if you're looking for a very good consistent starter that will be rather hard to screw up. The only thing that you may need to be worried about is the dexterity and intelligence requirements, which I will get around by going for a Onyx amulet that gives you stats, or a Dex Int amulet and rolling Dex Int on there. You'll also find other sources of like excess stats and intelligence and what have you, just as you come across gear pieces throughout the wild. That's what I normally found myself, is I would just end up with pieces with like plus 30 Int, plus 20 Dex, and it would get me to the cap eventually. But otherwise, use a stats necklace. That's my preferred option. And then we are going to look at the Ascendancy. We are running with Unstoppable, so you can't be stunned, and Temporal Chains maps aren't a massive pain in the ass, which is why this is quite nice. Then we're going for Unflinching, which is also going to give us a way to generate endurance charges and just sort of like snap refill you instantly and give you another endurance charge. So it gives you one charge every second you've been hit recently. Chance that when you gain a charge, you instead gain your max number of charges, and then a chance to gain a charge on hit. And then we've got Unrelenting for Chaos Resistance because we want to be as tanky as possible, so extra Chaos Res is nice as well. Additional damage reduction per charge, 7% extra damage reduction. Combine that with armor, obviously. Our physical mitigation gets even better. Reduced elemental damage taken while at maximum charges, 8% LE reduction, always nice. And then we go for Unbreakable, which is going to give us 2% of life regen per second, 5% damage taken reduction, which is very big when the numbers get stupid high. Armor received from body armor is doubled, so if you have a very nice armor chest piece, or like a big armor chest piece, then it gets very nice. And then 1.5% of total physical damage prevented from hits in the past 10 seconds is regenerated as life per second. Now, since we're taking a lot of small extra hits from all the trash mobs, that's going to give us extra healing just from taking those small hits while we are Fortify Cycloning in the center of everything. And yeah, that is going to pretty much be the character. I have played it myself. It was very effective. Problem is, as with any Cyclone character, it does get kind of bland holding down one button and just chilling. The only other issue that I had with this character was that it's sort of a Herald of Agony specific thing, but like you have to wait for Herald of Agony to throw its tail spike or do its thing before you can continue doing what you're wanting to do, I guess. So you're cycloning along, and rather than, you know, you're cycloning along and killing everything as you go, you're cycloning, and then it's like, okay, why is this pack not dead yet? And then the tail spike comes through, and then you go to the next pack. It's like, it's not. It just feels weird to be cycloning and not have Cyclone kill everything for you. You know, that's the weirdest sort of issue that I found myself. But yeah. That is going to be my Herald of Agony Juggernaut. The paste bin for that should be in the description down below. Do let me know if you utilize this character and what sort of renditions of it you make. And I hope it does very well for you. I've heard good things, and I hope it continues to bear fruit for those of you who utilize the character. That's going to be all for me, and as always, take care, gentlemen. Good luck in your Echoes of the Atlas experience. Take care.